Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Nick, and today's topic is your amazing human technology.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Well, hello, Kisma.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am great. It's been a full, wonderful day.
Well, tell me about it. Tell me about your day. Tell me
We're
about your
here
week.
at the offices in Carlsbad at
Do you
Common
like
Ground.
we got a new office?
Yeah, we switched to Rude offices, and yes, I like this very much. I like the other one too, but this one has it's not all glass, which helps with the energy piece. Yeah, I had some amazing clients today and lots of cool things happening in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exciting shifts.
Exciting shifts.
So I want to come back. You said, we're in the new office. And when you first came in, you said I didn't know this, but you were like, I want that office.
And so this is how I manifested. It happened with my house in Grosse Pointe. And it happened with this. Yeah, when I came to Common Grounds, I was like, this is such a cool place. And I had just a desk in the workplace area. But every time I walked in, there used to be a podcaster guy in here.
That's right.
He didn't look real happy.
Yeah, no, he
was
did
not happy.
It looked kind of sad.
It looked a little sad.
Yeah.
But I walked by, I was like, that's a cool office. Oh, I like that office. Oh, I really like that office. And then as I was looking for a private office, they already rented this one to a marketing company. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay. And I still had my desk. And then we went into the corner office. But I still would walk by, oh, I really want this office. So I heard it. I was like, those people need more space. Because we happened to be in a bigger office than them, and there were 4 of them.
And there's only 2 of us.
Yeah, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. And so I'm hearing, we're going to talk about the human and universal technology, I think. They need more space, and I'm to be in that office, and they're to come here. So when I heard that, I went and inquired with the really sweet gal, Helene. I was like, are there any smaller offices open? Because you started going to San Clemente a lot, right? The center opened. And they're like, well, not right now. And I'm like, well, what about that one over there? I think they need to move. And she's like, well, they're moving across in January when there's a bunch of guys over there that have the startup and they're going to go to a condo.
The Millennial Mad Men?
Yeah. The Mad Men, Millennial Mad Men. They're so cute.
They got a great bar
Apparently
cart.
very successful too.
It looks like it.
Yeah. So anyways, I was like, well, why don't we just do it sooner? And she goes, well, I can ask. And then it all just clicked. And they're over there. They got it decorated. They look great. We're here. And it just is like, that's the manifestation process. When you see it in your mind's eye, and when you get the voice, you have to act. One cannot ignore the voice.
Yeah, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. I had that today in a much smaller way where...
What'd you manifest, lunch or something?
No. I went to the Colombian place there, though. It was good. Not very vegetarian friendly. There's not a lot of meat on that Colombian menu, but the salsa was amazing.
You meat lovers in San Clemente, go there.
La Colombiana.
Nice.
But no, because we're still getting the internet hooked up there. And so I tether sometimes to an iPad, which actually is much faster than I thought it would be. But the other iPad was taken. And because not stolen, but it was for the event that's coming up this weekend. And as I was walking out the door, mine was sitting on the table, and I was just going to leave it there. And I heard the voice. I was like, "No, you need your iPad."
Yeah.
And when I got up there, I saw it was gone. I was like, "Yep."
Oh, so when you were leaving our house, you weren't going to take it.
Exactly.
And the voice said, take it. You have to listen to the voice.
Life is so much easier when you listen to the voice.
People.
Yeah.
The voice is real, okay? The voice, and this is not the voice, by the way, as you're going to hear us talk about. This is not the one saying you're not good enough, you can't do it. This is the voice that directs you in action, and you're like, what? And oftentimes, let me just kick off this subject by saying, I think humans doubt the voice or doubt the intuition or doubt the direct knowing because it's too good. They think it's too good to be true.
Or it doesn't make sense.
Or it doesn't make sense at that point in
the
time.
too good to be true thing too of like, no, it couldn't possibly be that easy.
Yeah.
There's that part for sure. Like that's definitely part of it. And another part of that is I just think it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
Why would I need my iPad?
Right.
There's no reason for me to
Right.
need that device, except that I needed that device. So yeah, I just think it's a process, of really learning how to trust that. I think that came up in one of your lives recently too, and I saw some interaction about that, which I thought was pretty interesting. And that's a question that comes up all the time. Is like, well, how do you trust that? And it's an interesting topic, trusting your intuition, and that's kind of,
well, you're asking Hallie, just freaking listen to it.
Well, yeah. just freaking do it, But having that sense of trust, I think it's not always comfortable for people.
I understand.
So it's really easy to talk yourself out of it. Sort of an ancillary topic to what we're diving into today, and this is a conversation that I've been thinking about a lot. Of like, when you look at like the computer age. And what is, what's happening is like they're developing these computers, but the computers are basically, they're trying to mimic, the processes that our own brains do,
right.
And what our human beings can do. And it's like this externalized way of, getting back to the amazing technology that we already have inside of us. And another part that I've seen about this is with all these advancements in technology, which are truly extraordinary. Like you think about what you can do with an iPhone, this little device, and like people can run. You can run a whole business from your iPhone.
Run a business from your iPhone.
You totally can. Let alone a laptop,
right?
And then all these little devices connecting together, and it's so easy now.
Yeah, they're talking to each other. I think they talk to each other more than humans talk to each other.
Yeah, that may be very well true, actually. And with all of this technology, and then you look at you've got the layers and layers of that. Now we've got social media is like huge with that aspect of connectivity. But then, like you just said, well, the actual human interaction is now becoming a very different thing for people.
Exactly.
And then there's social anxiety because it's like, oh, well, am I going to live up to my Facebook profile, or am I going to live up to my Instagram pictures, or whatever, whatever the kids are using these days.
Or there's social anxiety because they're not used to talking to humans. They're used to just texting.
Right. You're just texting, or you're just, and I get that because I am an introverted person. We talked about that last week too, and kind of a private person. And so my tendency is definitely like, great, like here, let's just shoot a text.
Right.
But that is not how missions are built.
Right. Exactly. No, there needs to be human connection.
You got to talk to people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anxiety around that because of, they just haven't really had that, or there have been so many different layers put on top of very simple human interaction.
Yeah.
And with all the technology, it's like the human being has not kept up with that. It's like they haven't made all the necessary upgrades to really interact with the technology in a super productive way, and so it stresses people out.
Oh, so our operating system is not what it could be.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
Human upgrade time.
Yeah. So, what's interesting about that is when you look at like an atom, right? They talk about atoms and energy and how, our world and the solid things that we see, they're made of these little molecules, right? But they organize in a certain way. So there's one part of it that's like this tiny little atom and all these little pieces, but there's another part of that says, this is wood. Like this needs to organize in that way.
Yeah, it does.
Or this is metal. It needs to organize in that way. And then all these little things come together, and there you have like a metal table or a wood tabletop or a cement floor or something like that. And it's like there's that information that's encoded into it. And then there's information encoded into our bodies too.
Yes.
Again, on a cellular level. Like how the heck does your body know how to breathe? How do you know? How do your eyes? The scientists still don't even quite understand exactly how you see.
Well, there's like, 1 billion activities that happen in the eye when it sees something and brings it back.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I don't even know the number, but billions of calculations in a split second in order to make see shape and form.
Right,
It really is a miracle. But when you look at it in like information and programs, it's like these massively complex and intricate programs are already designed into us.
They are.
It's-
by perfection, I
It's
might add.
already there. And so when you really think about your human potential, which is something that I think is really what the conversation is about, certainly for us, and I think it's one of the most important conversations that we can be having is, what is your actual human potential? What the heck can you do, with your human being? And when you look at what we're already capable of doing just by virtue of being,
Right.
and then start to look at some of the layers that you can peel away in order to get more in tune with that. I think you're really looking at like, wow, like that's how you get back to being a human being. Because I think we've lost some of that.
I think we have too. So in a way, if we took this sort of into the energetic, spiritual, or metaphysical place, it's like you're describing the internal God spark of a person, like their hookup to source, their antenna that goes directly up to the universal intelligence space, yet cloaked and layered all around it is conditioned personality, our beliefs, are all these things that, like you said, muddy the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the upgrade has actually already occurred. It's already there. Like we're perfectly and divinely organized and created, but we've messed with it. Like we put a wrong algorithm there.
I don't think of it in terms of reprogramming as much as I do deprogramming.
Deprogram. That's excellent.
Right, to get back to
Right.
that, like to get back to that, and what what is actually there for us to access, because these developments are very, very new.
Right.
Even 100 years ago, we couldn't do half of the things that we could, and then 100 years before that, you look at the last couple hundred and the industrial age in particular, where human beings were started. That's where I think human beings really started to be treated like machines.
Right.
Go to the factory, you do this one very
Yeah.
specific thing, and you do that for however many hours a day, and that's it.
So the creativity spark is diminished.
Absolutely.
The hard labor of being in one's body, right? So if we've gone from just farming and getting the food and all of that, and then into the industrialized age, and just task after task after task.
Well, some of those things would have definitely been physically demanding.
This is true.
Yeah, but no, but you're really onto something
But
there.
you're not
I think.
outside. You're not getting grounded. You don't have the sun. You don't have the earth.
And you're not typically having the human interaction in that same way. But this is where human beings started to be treated much more like machines, and they want very consistent results. And so what do? They train the human beings to just act like a machine.
Wow.
So it's totally counter to it just is so limiting.
It is limiting.
Because that's not how the human brain works. It's not how our intelligence works, and it's not really what we're designed to do. The computers are a cheap knockoff of what a human being can do. And the computers are freaking amazing.
And the computers are amazing. So
Right.
just how amazing are we? Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So this is not to diminish, like I can think of, so many people I know that worked in the steel mills and made a good living and, and created like
I'm from Detroit.
right, right. So the
So
jobs are necessary. They supported families. They supported the industry. However, at what cost?
well, there was a trade-off, right? I mean, that's the thing. So what did people get for it? They get security of
Yeah.
working for a corporation like that, and they get the retirement package, and they get that sense of like, yeah, like I get, like this is, I don't have to like scratch it out on my own, I'm going to be taken care of if I just do my work. But the trade-off for that was freedom.
Yeah.
And in a much deeper level, I think the trade-off for that was really the experience of being fully human and fully creative in the world. You can argue with me about that. I'm sure some people will differ with me on that, but I really think that's a big part of it. And so, but it didn't just happen then. This has been happening for so
cyclical,
long.
yeah.
You go back to when the the burning of the Library of Alexandria and all the teachings that were destroyed throughout that.
What was that, like 700,000 volumes or something of amazing mystical teachings? Scary, sad. All because some higher ups got scared.
Somebody got scared and it was like, yep, we can't have that information getting out there.
Right, because that information was about humans doing way more than what we think we can do today.
And it speaks to a much more true expression of the human potential.
And why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't say, I mean, it paints kind of a grim picture, right? I think, but that's not my point. Sure. Certainly. It's just to say that it's really is time. It's time to get back to that. You know, you talk about like holistic health, you know, as a buzzword, that the real meaning of it is I think it's funny, you know, they talk about holistic health and then it's like all about supplements, or it's all about this one thing that's in the word. Holistic is dealing with the entire human being. And that becomes really, really important. And one of those pieces is, you know, the belief structure in the mind. You talk about programs like, okay, you've got, you know, your app store and you can go download an app for pretty much anything. Right. But your brain is so much more developed and has so much more potential than an app. Right. But we become dependent on the apps to do those things. But kind of like that, you know, like you said before, I think you put it really well when you said we're getting back to that. So we've layered up all of these other things that just haven't, you know, maybe served us for a time, but now it's outdated. Well,
I know for me, a couple of things that I am not so good at because of technology's advancement. Well, number one, I have a hard time spelling these days.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to be like the wizard spelling bee. It was always easy, but because of the computer, I shouldn't blame it on the computer, but it wasn't because the computer's in my life. And I'm not writing. Like when there's something about that technology of putting pen to paper and having that muscle and that repetitive, like my spelling's gone down the tubes. And the other, memorizing numbers. Do you remember back in the day when, for those of you like old enough, you memorized your best friend's number and like 10 other numbers? And it was no big deal. You memorized your friend's numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Patty's and David's and Jill's and Sandy's. Like, I just knew everybody's number.
I think yours is like the only number that I know.
And I do know yours. But I'm like, and I know Zoe's, but we don't memorize numbers anymore.
No, we just don't.
I mean, maybe some of you do. I mean, it's crazy, right?
It is. I mean, it's interesting. It's cool because it opens up a new area for us. It opens up more headspace, but at the same time, it's like some of those ancient, and those are ancient channels that have just started to deteriorate,
atrophy.
You know, I think atrophy. That's a good word for it. You know, what's interesting. I've been rethinking something too. You know, about where you know, we've talked about like, you've got these old tales, like in mythological tales and things like that. And let's take the Bible, for example. Like, you know, okay, here's the stories of Genesis and here's these things. And then you think about, okay, well, the Bible was put together like, you know, even the New Testament, you know, hundreds of years or after Jesus died, and these stories were handed down and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, well, if you play a game of telephone, you know, like, well, what the heck happens? Like, are these even the real stories? But here's what's interesting that I've learned that made me rethink that is that if a person can't read or write, they remember information in a very different way.
That's true.
And what's actually been shown is that there is an ability to pass down those stories with amazing detail over long periods of time.
Really?
Because somebody was entrusted with the information.
Oh, it was like a code. They were encoded with it.
And if they can't, well, it was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You know, so there were ceremonies built around these stories and everything, and those represented something very real and very tangible in their society and in their structure, you know, and how they interact with people and everything like that. And they tell all sorts of stories and tales, and there's always something in there that really expresses a deeper truth.
Right.
And so, you know, the point that I really want to make with that is that we have those abilities, and as they start to atrophy, you know, you can lose something from that.
Yes.
Like you really can, you lose some of that,
Yes.
that human potential.
Absolutely.
And so as we begin to read and write, it's like, okay, well, I don't need to remember anything.
I don't need
'cause
to remember. I'm
I
going to
can
write
Google
it down, look at it later.
Yeah, I can just
Yeah.
Google it. Mm-hmm. And then I used to like, I'd remember like or bookmark things that I'd need to Google, like here's this Google search on something, so that I can find that right away. It's like, just Google it, dude. If you need to know it next time, just Google it. It's funny.
I know, but look how we're trusting Google.
Yeah, you trust the Google. And now I don't want to go off on a really big tangent. Now with net neutrality, though, if that's something that shifts, is now all of a sudden there's a certain entity that has specific control over what you see and what you don't see.
I ain't going to be Googling anything if that happens.
And truth be told, like really think about that, but it won't be Google. It'll be other companies, and maybe Google will buy those companies. But
it's like a revisit of the Library of Alexandria.
it is. Well, yeah. They don't destroy the information; they just bury it.
They just bury it.
So fascinating, really, really fascinating topic. But the clear line between what computers are doing and what the human being is capable of, these analogies I think are really, really relevant because now we understand how computers work to a degree. Like we may not understand the ones and the zeros, but we understand how the apps work. We understand how the technology works, and that really gives us some new insight. So you look at your brain and the apps that are running in there, and that's the part where it's like, how many apps do you have? Everybody, pick up your phone and look at it and see how many apps on there that you actually use.
I don't like having apps that I don't use.
How many apps on there and how many that are just sitting there that you're just like, yeah, I don't even know why that's there.
Yeah, what's it for?
I don't even know what that does. Or they upgrade the phone.
Right.
And then it's like all of a sudden it can do all these cool things that you didn't even know it could do. And then maybe you find them like 6 months later.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And when you look at that, it's like, wow, like what's really in there that I can get out of the way and deprogram?
Well, I look at it as if we made a conscious intention to upgrade ourselves every time our phone upgraded, we'd be living on a different planet.
True story.
Like really consciously intent, I am upgrading my speech, my thought, my actions, my beliefs, whatever, every time our phone upgraded.
Mm-hmm. That's the question of questions. And so what that brings me really to what I really wanted to talk about with this whole conversation is how the heck do you do that?
How do you upgrade?
How do you upgrade? When you look at, okay, you've got a belief structure. Mm-hmm. Some of these are ancient stories and myths that we've been told that determine like how we function as a human being. Mm-hmm. And so in the highest spiritual teachings, they really talk about no beliefs.
Yeah, right. Complete objectivity.
But if you did that all at once, what would happen to you?
Might be kind of cool.
For a minute, yeah, but you would definitely like how you wouldn't even know how to relate or function in the world.
I don't know.
If you took all of that away, like how would you even interact?
Completely deprogrammed?
Yeah.
Well,
interesting, right?
It is interesting.
It's kind of an interesting question. So it really is a layer by layer thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I think anyway. But I think you have to have that curiosity about your own limitations.
Absolutely, because if the universe, I put this in an email to my tribe today. The universe, I've heard a lot of voices, right? Not weird, but just I've heard a lot of voices. I get a lot of direct knowing. I've never once heard the universe say it can't do something. I've never once heard the universe say it won't do something. And I've never heard the universe say it's limited. And we are the universe. Like we're created with that same, whatever you want to call it, rich substance, consciousness. We are it. We've got it in us.
We've got a line. Yeah.
We've got a line.
Yeah.
We've got a hookup, people.
Yeah.
We've got a hookup. And so when you ask how, it's kind of an interesting question. It'd be more like, to me, the question is like, when am I going to open up my mind to see outside of the box that the world has created?
Right.
Because this box gets boring fast.
Yeah, for you in particular. Sorry. Not for everyone. Some people are very comfort.
Okay, be comfortable in the box if you like it.
No, yeah, but like for you, for sure. And I'm like that too. And I know a lot of our listeners are like that of like, geez, this is kind of familiar.
Like, what if this wasn't, what so many beliefs that people are running, what if it wasn't the truth, if it wasn't real?
Yeah.
We know the definition of real is what has been, is, and will be. We're talking about Brahman here, but, at the same time, like getting outside of one's typical thought flow and taking away the fear of what other people think or what they're labeling something, what they're telling you, and really get, I guess, it's to the core of one's truth.
Yeah.
And when you can get to the core of your truth, that's when the operating system is upgraded.
Yeah. 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 That's true. When you can peel back one more layer or like just like take off one more app, or something that's just been messing up your computer. Then you're getting one step closer. And I think it's just one step closer. Now, what I think is interesting about that is that you started with a question. You ask a new question. What if? Like, I think that's so cool. Like, that is so amazing. Like, what if? Like, what if? I weren't. What if I weren't limited in my time? What if I had plenty of time?
Go back and listen to Bending Time.
Time bending. Yeah.
Time bending.
That was a fun one. But really, like that is such a great way, because you can't think your way out of it. Because the thinking is the problem.
Thinking is often the problem.
Yeah. So it's not really about thinking your way out of it. This is why mindset things.
Yeah.
They get you to a certain place and they can help to really refine. But at the end of the day, if it's only dealing with mindset, you're only dealing with those thought processes, and that can be helpful, but it's just not going to solve the whole thing.
The energy needs to be resolved.
You have to solve the energy.
And the intuition needs to be heightened.
Right, but that exactly. I see the intuition.
Yeah, I know. We look at this differently.
No, I see that as more a result. Of solving the energy. Correct. It's like, you get some of those things. I always like, man, it's like
your intuition's heightened, your direct knowing is stronger. Everything is boom.
Right. It's like
lit up.
All those voices in the back of my head that I didn't even know were there are suddenly quiet, and it's like, oh man, I could freaking hear for a second.
And here's the interesting thing, everyone. This is why people go to Burning Man. If we have any Burning Man fans out there, awesome. I've never been. I'm not going near it. I just won't be there. It'll implode. The entire globe will implode. This is why people do sometimes extreme sports or, go on a lot of ayahuasca tours and do take other drugs, because people are trying to tap in. They want that tapped in, but they haven't realized it's not the external that brings them the tapped in.
Yeah.
It's going more and more and more internal to a core truth. And like you said, Nick, just peeling off the layers. And when you focus on the external, oftentimes you're adding another layer of attachment to trying to seek that consciousness. Right.
Now I need, a drug or a substance or a certain thing in order to have that experience. It's the same attachment that people reform to religious ceremony.
Exactly.
And things like that, So that thing becomes the problem.
Exactly.
It becomes an actual another impediment.
Because it's of the world.
It's of the world. Yeah. And that's where the challenge really becomes.
How can we give, or what tips do you have to our listeners?
Well, this is a pretty big topic.
This is a big topic. It might be ongoing.
So I think it's something that will unfold as we continue, because this is something that, like I said, I've been thinking about a lot, and it's something that is definitely, it's not going anywhere for me.
Okay. That's cool.
This is something that's really
I have
there.
an idea.
Okay.
My idea is have a willingness. That's what to all of our listeners, have a willingness to see things through a different lens.
Yeah.
If you start there, there's going to be a miracle.
Yeah.
Right? If you just have that willingness, like,
start.
I'm taking off this lens of what everyone told me and demonstrated and how I feel I should, and I'm putting on a new sparkly crystal lens.
Yeah. I really think how you framed it with a question was so elegant.
What if?
What if, like the time thing is always one that pressurizes people. It's like, what if I did have plenty of time?
What if I had enough energy? I mean, what time did I get here? I'm not sure, but I've been here all day talking to about 5-6 clients, doing emails, doing stuff. I have one more client after this. It's like, I could tell myself I'm going to be tired, or I could tell myself, which is the truth, I love doing this.
Yeah. And your eyes are still sparkly.
Yeah.
So There you have it. No, but I think that's a really great place to start with it, is like start asking some different questions about that, and don't feel like you have to have an answer.
Oh, that's a good one too.
It's like when you ask the question, it's like, well, what if I did have enough time? Great. Well, why don't you go ahead and act as if you do?
Oh yeah, start there.
Just take an action as if you do, and go from there. Because if you just try to figure it all out in your mind and see every step, like, well, then you're missing your intuitive, you're basically shutting the door on some of the intuitive hits that'll come through. And you're also just trying to solve it from the mind, and the mind's kind of the problem.
Exactly. And here's the cool thing of not having the answer. One, if their operating system is upgrading, will stay in curiosity.
Exactly.
And the curiosity is where you break through the box.
Yeah.
So be cool with no answer. I love that. Stay in curiosity, stay in inquiry, and keep expanding that until all of a sudden you're going to find something so amazing, so magical that you never saw.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the really interesting things about beliefs. Like you bring that up is how when you have a belief that you just take for granted, and then there's something outside of that, is the typical person will meet that first resistance with resistance.
Right.
They'll be like, no, that's not possible.
Yes.
Or it can't possibly be that way. That's not how this was. That's not how this works.
Right.
And then that gets you back into that need to be right.
Yeah, need to be right doesn't work.
And that's a problem. But the antidote to that is curiosity.
Curiosity.
So it's really just saying like, oh, like, wow. I think about it like, another thing is like where if you did deprogram.
I just have to laugh. That was Nick scratching his beard.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do that further away from the microphone. It's so fun to be able to see.
I know. We have a different setup this week.
When you think about the beliefs, okay, and it brings you back to that question of like, okay, well, what if you suddenly just had no belief structure at all? Like what would happen? It's like now you have this vacuum, and it's like, well, what comes into the vacuum? And so as you start to peel away some of those layers too, as you really become much more discerning about the information that you take in,
exactly,
and how you examine that,
yes,
before you give it a place,
right.
And what I think is cool about that is that, well, let's use another analogy, right? So they pushed out the new iOS for the iPhone, okay? And how do they do it? Like they've got their sandbox, and they're testing it like a million different ways, okay? And then they try it, and then they're like, screw it, we got to get it out, So they put it out there. And then inevitably there's bugs. They know there's bugs. Yeah. Everybody knows it. So they know there's going to be bugs. But then, they get that feedback, and then they start to work out all the bugs. And then you've got all these other updates. This last one seemed particularly egregious to that.
Okay.
But regardless, it's like that's kind of the process. And so I think that's a really healthy way to explore new ideas and to bring them in a really discerning way. So rather than, I learned this new thing and this is the way it is and I'm going to tell everybody about it. You see this a lot with people who are recovering from addiction, or you see it with people who have become born again, in this like, I found Jesus and you need to find Jesus too. And these things, like all of a sudden it becomes about that, but you haven't really understood that for yourself to begin with, and like how that embodies on a cellular level and how you live that knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I've totally done that to people.
Oh, I've done it too. I mean,
about something, I don't know.
Yeah, you just get so fired up. Like, that may just be us, getting fired up about new ideas and new insights and stuff. But I think a lot of people do that. And those are two instances too, where that happens a lot. But what hasn't happened is really have that time in the sandbox to play with the ideas and to really just kick that around for yourself and also explore how it works in your own life and really understand how it works for you before you share it out to more and more people. Right. And that's one of the things for me that I just think is really important, is to have that space to just explore. Like, it's really like a safe space in yourself to just, it's okay to just explore a little bit and try on some different ideas and try it out. Like, golly, like today I'm going to live my day as if I totally had enough time.
Yes, I love that.
I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try it for a day. Yeah. Today, I'm going to try this breathing thing.
I'm going to breathe.
And I'm going to do the breathing thing no matter what. I'm doing the breathing thing.
doing
and I'm
the
just going to
breathing.
see what happens.
Yes.
And so then it gives you that space to like, oh, okay, like here's how this really integrates, and like here's what this does for me. And that embodied with, that's when that knowledge or the information actually becomes wisdom.
Yes.
It becomes a sense of knowing, and then you're able to express it in a much more authentic way, in a much more powerful way.
Yeah.
If you choose to do that, or you can just live it yourself, or you can say that doesn't work, I'm good. You know.
Yeah.
So it really lets it kind of, because they're sticky. They're really sticky.
Things stick, beliefs stick.
They really do. And so when you start to unwind those things, they can be so sticky and you can get really caught up with them. And so having a little bit of place to play with that and let them come unstuck so that you can really examine them, I think makes a world of difference.
I do too. And I think that's a great approach. You know, whoever's in, I'd love to hear from you. Just put in the comments below the show notes of how you or what you're doing to pivot a belief or to remove a belief, you know, or to ask that question, what if?
Yeah, what if?
You know, be the Superman, be the Superwoman, like go for it.
Yeah.
Don't go flying off buildings.
No,
you know what I mean?
Don't do that part. But we'll work on flying.
We'll work on flying and levitating
2018 maybe.
Yeah, I just know there's so, you know, I mean, I'm obsessed with manifesting and prosperous thinking, and it works.
It really does.
So the internal peace, my friends, really does create the external.
Yeah.
So when our internal peace is being overshadowed by all of this technology, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you would rather connect with people through your device than have a conversation with the person sitting in front of you, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You either have a problem with the people that you're surrounded with, or you have a problem with how you're interacting with those people.
Yeah.
And that is something, what's cool about that is like, that's really not that hard to solve.
Exactly.
Stress and anxiety, like,
Oh, we solve that all day long.
yeah, I know. It's like, it's something that is just so simple when you have the right tools.
When you have the
for
right
it.
tools.
And I don't know, people are always surprised when I say that. They're, you know, like, I've got this anxiety and da-da-da.
Well,
and I'm
think
just like,
about what
that's
the
easy,
media
man.
does and what society does is, and stress is a number one cause of dis-ease and doctor visits. So the more people say that, the more stressed everyone gets.
And they build into it, and then they want to form all these labels around
Right.
it. So then you
Right.
label somebody based on, you know, a very limited amount of information that you have. And all of a sudden now they've got a label. And some people want the label because they just want to know, like, what the heck, man?
Right.
Like, what's going on with me?
Right.
Right? Because that helps to put a container in it, but it also locks it in.
Exactly.
Like, here, now you're this. Now you have depression. Okay. Now what?
Yeah.
Right? That's not helpful.
Yeah.
It's really not, you know. What's more helpful is solution oriented.
Yeah. Stay in the solution.
Yeah.
Get in the solution, find the solution, and ask what if. And one more tip I'll give before we sign off is, man, turn off the electronics. I remember we were at an event, I think it was with Siobhan, who was on one or two shows ago. So make sure you listen to that. And remember, she had us, I think I was the person that grabbed everyone's phone,
Oh, I do remember that.
locked them up. And the rest of the day was massive creativity.
Yeah.
Massive. Like people were just pouring stuff out of their brains and their minds and tapping into source. And it was like, boom. And that creativity was getting stifled by the use of the phone.
That is a really cool insight. I had almost forgotten about that. That was amazing. You got to see a whole different side of people.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like, oh my
Without
gosh.
this tether to
like,
this electronic thing.
who is that? You know, and even if the phone's in their pocket, you know, it's
Yeah.
on vibrate, or the mental tether is still there of like,
Yeah.
oh, I better check my phone.
Right.
And then you'd go to check it. What's cool, and I don't want to go off on a thing here, but what I thought was very interesting about that for myself and what I observed in other people was that you reach for your phantom phone a couple times, but before you know it, like really quickly, it's just like, oh,
I don't have my
I
phone.
don't have my phone.
This is cool.
You know, so your mind actually adapts back
Right.
to that really
Right.
quick because we're way we're way closer, you know, like to not having phones than we
Right.
are to, like, you know, always having a phone.
Right.
Like that is that's something that's so new to us in the grand scheme of things in our lives and in human history.
Yeah.
It's a brand new thing. So for your mind to pop back to like, oh, I don't have my phone.
Yeah.
Like if
Collective
anybody's had
consciousness in a phone.
yeah, if anybody's just not had a phone for a few days, like you miss it, for sure, but you find a way.
Yeah.
And then inevitably I hear people say like, oh, that was really kind of nice.
Right, exactly. So turn off that phone for a while, shut your computer, read a book, more importantly, tap in, maybe speak to someone else and ask the question.
Ask the questions.
If?
Yeah, what if? Oh, I love that. That's so great. And thank you so much for bringing that. Wow, so this is exciting for me. So thanks for entertaining this topic. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. And I know it's going to unwind over the next who knows, month, few months, whatever.
Eons.
Eons, yeah, until the end of time. But I just think it's awesome, and thanks so much. So
yeah, thanks for being here, everyone. Place the comments below in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. And a very heartfelt namaste.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.